Hello, and welcome to the FlowRy Show, a journey through life's tapestry, wisdom for every generation. On this show, we talk about where generations intertwine, sharing stories, insights, and dreams. Whether you are a seasoned sage or a curious young mind, we're all students in the grand classroom of life. Join with me today, my co host, Mike Ryan, and I, Nicole Flowers, along with a special guest, as we explore a tapestry woven with threads of collaboration, dreams, and lessons learned along the way. And as I've shared with you, we have a very special guest. Mike, would you please introduce our special guest to our audience as we delve into an inspiring journey through the world of healthcare technology and innovation? Mike?
Yeah, happy to. So I'd like to introduce Tatyana, who I've known, I think, at least 17 years. We try to get together probably annually, whether it's in Palo Alto or South San Francisco at the birth of the biotech. But she is an extraordinary woman. All you have to do is go to her LinkedIn profile, and we can share that at some point. But she is someone who's definitely a pioneer in many respects. And I think it goes back to her childhood or early adolescence, where she was and very humble about this, but we keep up on her background and her history as a champion chess player. And can you imagine having that kind of brain that is 4 or 5 steps ahead when you're dealing with her in the business world? And she has, I think, one of the first times we met when she was starting her Open Health Network. And that was a result. And she can go into more detail about that later. But she's an extraordinary woman. I can tell you on a personal note, she celebrated my wife's birthday together. We had an 80s, thing. So talk about intergenerational gathering of different people, mostly 80s lovers, whether people were in their 20s, 30s, or 40s. But it was a very great time, and had an opportunity to meet her on a personal basis, and her enthusiasm. She's on the cutting edge of AI, and been doing that not in the last 2 or 3 years, but probably the last 15 or 30 years when you really look at what AI has been and where it's come from. So I'm very pleased to have her. I will also tell you another thing that she just posted today. She's a very good baker and cook, and I get to see a lot of her stuff. And she was contacted by Jeff Bezos' wedding planner.
It's April 1st, Mike.
To do, and I'm dyslexic, as you know, and is it the pavlova cake that you make
it's pavlova, but it's an April 1st joke.
No, but that's all good, but it talks about your ability to impact people for food for thought and food for the stomach. And so, that wouldn't have surprised me, but it was a great April Fool's joke. And even though this is April Fool's, you are no fool. You're a very savvy woman. And so we're really pleased to have you on this first part of our conversation with you today. So
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nicole, if you want to begin with some of what we're going to focus on today.
Absolutely. We definitely want to dig in around the birth of Open Health Network, as you alluded to, Mike. And Tatyana, thanks once again for joining us. You've had a personal experience battling colon cancer, and one can only imagine the life-changing event that sparked your vision to create a platform that would empower patients and transform the healthcare landscape. Tatyana, through your pain, you're able to start creating a vision of what this platform will be to harness the power using the technologies that you have become known for, big data and artificial intelligence, to deliver personalized healthcare solutions. Can you share with our audience what inspired you to start Open Health Network and some of the challenges you had encountered to make this company successful?
Thank you. Great question. And of course, like getting cancer diagnosis is not fun. And as probably everyone, when you're like sitting on the couch in your living room, you get a call from your physician. Oh, I have bad news. You know, you have cancer. And they're like, oh gosh,
Mm,
you know, should I start my funeral planning and so on, right? Um, so it took me a while actually to kind of digest and what's going on and come up with a plan. And at that moment, I think it was obvious to me that there's always purpose in things, right? So and what triggered my thinking on the purpose side was when I asked my oncologist, like, why me? I'm good. I
mm,
exercise. I eat healthy.
mm,
Um, and genetic testing showed that it wasn't inherited, right? So why me? And I did get the response that, oh, you're not lucky. And I came home and I was like thinking about that. We have so much data, or we can have so much data that we should be able to try to figuring out why some people get certain diseases, some people with similar type of stuff live, some people die. We just don't know, right? So back then, 2013, I after thinking about all those things that we should know but we don't know, and I'm repeating the date, 2013, I came up with this vision of to collect 360 degrees of data. So I had a deck where I listed data sources that could potentially impact your health. And there were stressors, lifestyles, environmental data, consumption data, along with genetic HR and patient reported stuff. So all of that coming from sensor devices, you, um, public health data sources, and so on. And at that time, I went and kind of socialized my vision with number of known people, and all of them were looking at me. Data, healthcare, AI, like, what are you talking about? Right? Especially now when and I'm looking at people that I did talk to back then that now just write and talk about AI and data and healthcare is like, where have you been for the last? So, but this is not new. I always look in every industry, every technology I worked with. Usually it was taking, 5+ years for people to realize that the things I've written and that I've talked about actually true. So I'm not surprised but in this case, it's almost like, 8, 10 years delay.
right, right.
But I'm happy that things
Catching up to
finally.
your vision, right, of
Right.
where because of personal impact, but it also took upon your skill sets, where you've been and what you've done and all that. That I remember you and I having this call at not too far from Genentech over in South San Francisco, and I got it just because I dealt with some other companies on non-healthcare related and said absolutely this is really the future, or whether you call it personalized medicine or whatever. That AI component goes beyond what a human can't do, right? So you would have
Yeah.
to have all that data, millions and billions of data and data sets and like that now is becoming very vogue. So you've always been a pioneer, and I applaud you for that.
Yeah. And I know I was speaking back then at one of the events, big events in healthcare. And when I told from stage that I want to be treated by Watson, people look at me, what? I was like, there's just too much data in healthcare. It you need, you know, help from, super advanced algorithms to get to the bottom of things. And I'm just thrilled that now it's kind of mainstream
Mhm.
vision, which is great. There are tons of issues, but going back to the vision, once we start, looking at all the different places, and we've built variety of different AI models using public data sets just to explain to people the power of AI and data back then. Like, for example, we built an algorithm that was accurately predicting cancer types at the zip code level, predicting,
Mhm.
right? Or we looked at certain environmental citations, tied it with public data set on different diseases, and published interactive map on how environmental things impact certain diseases on population level. So we were just trying to educate people on the power of data in the context of healthcare. At the same time, we've realized back then that there is no easy way to get all the data we need, right? And it forced us to build SAP like configurable, customizable, enterprise grade system that connects researchers, care team with uh, patients, health coaches, and then all the data that comes from devices, sensors, integrates in data cloud, pushes it back to the care team. So we build like literally SAP for uh, now it's like care at home, remote patient monitoring, whatever you want to name it. But we've been deploying it for a long time. Just this, there was no easy way to get the rest of the data. This AHR has, what it has, right? In most of the cases, your annual um, blood test results, right? So, but I was interested in everything else. What's happening when you're not at the physician's office? And for some of the studies, we're getting data from in sensors, so environmental data like
Mhm.
noise level, air quality. We integrate data from uh, consumer grade, clinical grade devices, and everything in between, along with patients telling how they feel, and health coaches putting their notes if they involve, like based on conversations with the patients, and all of that gets analyzed.
I was curious, just thinking about, I have taken courses at Stanford in computer science. I'm nowhere as deep as you are, but it's all O's and ones, right? But it does, and I was thinking, you look at the world populations of, China has 1.4 billion people, India has 1.4 billion. Many of those, the top languages, is that a barrier at all? Since the number one is, I think, Chinese, and whether that's Mandarin or Cantonese. Number two, I believe, is Spanish. Number three, I believe, is English, and then Hindi. And I'm wondering, is that any way a barrier, or it's lost in translation, literally, as far as data, or just?
No, no. As a matter of fact, we've done, and still we have a number of projects, for example, with UCSF, where we deploy solutions in like 3, 4, 5 languages,
Wow.
including Mandarin and Spanish, and so.
Right.
So
Okay.
no, but what we have to do, um, we pay tons of attention to population specific things, right? So
Mhm.
if we know that the solution will be used in Chinese community, we have the whole like user group and research on the UX UI from not just on if we have visuals, how those should look like,
Mm,
uh, all the way to if we're using the right language,
right.
the way they speak. So everything gets adapted to the targeted population.
Got it. That makes sense. I mean, it's determination, what do you call them? Determination, social determinants of health as well, right? Because if you give a prescription or you give a treatment or whatever, but it either is not on the sensitivity of what the culture is of that particular patient, then it can be, again, not implemented and not, taken going forward and having an impact on that. So that makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
and I can tell you we're using AI for the voice, right?
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
And we have users from different community types who listen even to the um, like how voice reflects the age. For example, with certain
Wow.
communities, they will listen more carefully to certain if the voice doesn't sound like it's a teenager giving them healthcare advice.
Right. Right.
So
No,
we like literally look at every aspect of every element that it's like completely adapted to the user that will be using it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
extraordinary. Because my daughter-in-law happens to be Filipino, and I believe there's over 100 dialects, right? Even
Mhm.
then, but as far as how do and I'm sure we're getting better and better as far as again the UI or the interface with the patient and the caregiver, right? That and what you're saying is it's not just the language is there, but what's the word, making sure that there's sensitivity and that it just doesn't sound like a robot, right?
Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and I can imagine that will only increase as the language models improve, whether it's dialect or sensitivity or compassion in a voice makes sense as opposed to something that's dry and sounds like a robot and maybe more like Watson than less like Florence Nightingale, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen, and I'm very optimistic about visual apps where there will be smart, adaptable avatars, humanoids, whoever they are,
Right, right.
but they will not just be communicating with you, but they will be able to do like sentiment analysis based on
Mm,
your facial expression, the way you talk back.
right.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love it. What I see in the future, I just absolutely love it.
Well, we
Yeah.
we love you, seeing the future and sharing with folks that may not be so intensely deep in understanding it, because I think it definitely makes an impact. And I think that having your vision and I go back to your mind of a chess player and kind of having 5-6 steps or 5-6 years ahead of most folks because of your personal journey, but also because you're so well versed in what the healthcare system looks like. I know you just came back from the med group in San Diego with Danny Kraft. Is there any breaking news that you've seen there, or is it okay, I thought of this 10 years ago?
No, I didn't spend too much time. I just spent a day, but
Okay.
I did look at uh, carefully curated demos of startups in a expo hall, if you will,
Right.
and it was interesting that there are a whole bunch of companies that focused on neuroplasticity of the brain.
Hmm.
And that area is huge, right?
Right.
Because if you can detect, delay, improve on anything on uh, diseases such as dementia, Alzheimer's,
Right.
huge.
Right.
So I will post few things. So I just posted about one company that I talked to the CEO. She's exceptional. Um, what they do, they build this device that has 3D and AI and VR inside it, that enables like non-trained specialists, like primary care physicians, to do complete scan of the eye of people with diabetes. An AI engine can identify early stages of potential, of disease that, causes blindness.
Sure.
And now you can democratize that. People don't have to wait 10,000, years to see specialists, or in the areas where they don't have them. And
Absolutely.
so it's huge. So I published a post on that. And I will be writing about other companies I talk to who have this fascinating um, user-friendly consumer-grade devices that potentially can help people to take adjustments or engage in certain activities that activate certain parts of their brains that potentially can delay offsets of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
By the way, fun
Yeah.
fact, I've done my research, and I was trying to get grant to get coalition of neuroscientists and so on to do, full-fledged kind of research from ARPA, but ARPA will come to this as a government organization 10 years after.
Right. Right.
So if you look at chess players who grandmasters
Right.
and old age, like very limited to none developed dementia and Alzheimer's.
Mm,
So it doesn't mean the brain doesn't age.
right.
It means that chess is a very complex game that triggers different parts of the brain that rewire.
Interactivity. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And we need to put research. So I have the whole proposal on that eventually people will realize that we don't need to design special games.
Right.
We can use easily accessible, people can be trained, and it's a social game.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, Nicole knows my mom. We did an interview with her. She's 94. She plays bridge 4 times a week, and it's not chess. I take it, but it's the neuroelasticity or whatever the term is important. I think another thing you touch upon, I'd be interested to get your feedback on this. Is we kind of what you explained with the Alzheimer's and other neuro interactions with technology AI. I mean, we thought that the great hope was Google Glass, right? But the barrier to entry, in my humble opinion, whether that was into surgeries or whatever, and as Sergey sat at one of our good friends, the Wozitsky's Janet's birthday party, he was wearing them, and it just kind of it wasn't able to parlay into not just the elite, but also in the foothills of Africa, or to be in India or other places. It's when that's, to me, the greatest power, right, of AI. Hopefully won't take 50 or 100 years. We can do that in the next 10 or 15 years, where accessibility to healthcare is happening at a most basic level, whether it's on a diagnostic, treatment, or follow-up. I think that will be a key. So it's very interesting, some of those companies that you look at and always stay on the cutting edge with.
Oh
Appreciate
yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
I think the main reason that certain things are not happening, there are a few. One of them is, of course, politics, who's
Right.
in control, and of course, government. I mean, they're doing a lot of good stuff. They always also um, having good reasons. This we have, you read about AI engines that said horrible things back to people, to patients,
Sure.
including, like, I don't want even to repeat. So we need, and I can tell you, we with the deploying right now with UCSF, completely fascinating Gen AI driven behavioral tool, but we spend tons of time, as much of time of developing with, I know, large team of specialists and proprietary, transcripts and so on. We spend as equal amount of time to put the whole infrastructure and boundaries on things that cannot be discussed and shouldn't be, so it's very
Right.
important in healthcare. But I don't think you know, we, we should be like without any concerns, just push all those tools. So they have to be validated, assessed, and that they're safe, right?
Right.
No
Right.
harm, number one.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Then
don't.
that they actually bring value, right? But with that, I mean, can you imagine if people everywhere in the world can have access to diagnostic information? I can tell you, like, I'm laughing because all my data, every single test, everything is in Gen AI engines, and I'm getting much better analysis because physicians just don't have time.
Right.
But I do have access to physicians in many parts of the world, even within the US. They just don't have access to specialists and
Right.
level of care that they might need, right?
Right.
So this type of technologies, they of course will make a huge difference, and it's happening super fast. So I'm, as you can see, excited about this.
I mean, and you should be.
Absolutely, Tatyana, and thank you for this insight because you are spot on that AI does provide early disease detection, as you alluded to in the Alzheimer's space, where there are algorithms that can analyze medical images and patient data to start doing that disease detection at early stages. You also touched on just the predictive and analytics part where we can optimize how resources are being distributed and as well as the treatment optimization. There's one area of emerging tech where we're using this to empower patients, and just would like for you to educate our audience as we're closing out the session around blockchain. Can you walk us through how you envision blockchain technology being used in healthcare, whether it's securing data, controlling patient data along the supply chain? Just share with us your perspective, how you foresee blockchain technology as an application in healthcare.
Uh, Great question. First of all, when people talk about blockchain, they think about crypto, and
Yes, and it has
like
other.
we're not talking about crypto. So there are certain pieces within blockchain technology that is used, and have been used for a while in financial services, in healthcare, and in supply chain that are very useful, right? So we use smart contracts behind the scenes, for example, right? But because you can trace the data flow, and you can have it done in very secure, protected way. And going back to your question about patient owning, then my dream was that, and we deployed it at one point of time, um, where I have control of my data, and we build a marketplace where it's like blinded to connect patients with researchers, clinical trial people, but in the context of rewards, right? So let's say someone is doing clinical trial on new drug for diabetes. Let's say there are a bunch of people with diabetes. So they will get notification. This is ABC company. Here's the terms of the engagement on this clinical trial. This is what you will have to do, when, how, and this is the comp. And if you agree, we execute the contract, right? So it's kind of, but at the same time, it can go even beyond that use case. So I think it's integrating all those bits and pieces. So what's happening in healthcare is kind of fun, but at the same time concerning. And I just put that
Right.
in the post yesterday, that it's still happening like niche integrated offerings using a variety of different technologies. But the truth is, we have to stop at this. Everything in healthcare will come when we get massive amounts of multidimensional data sets in one place. So if I'm wearing one gadget that has one type of data in it, that's great. It can be helpful for niche things. But the bottom line, especially me, trying to figure out on the preventive side what can be done, on the predictive side, I do want to have a database that has my visionary data, 360 degrees of data.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at all these 10,000 gadgets. One does your blood pressure and has cloud-based for blood pressure, another one for environmental, another one for brain, another one. And I'm like,
A lot of clutter and chaos, right?
yeah.
Right, exactly. And it sounds like blockchain, it does have the potential to improve and provide secure, transparent, and patient centered approach to data sharing and management. But we also, to your point, they're in fragmented pieces, and we need to have a more cohesive way of how we go about improving patient privacy.
Yep. I mean, I think we all have issues with our data used by companies to make tons of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why, right?
Yes.
This is like a common theme, right? And healthcare is extremely valuable data, and it's a valid question, like why and should that be used, and is there any way for me to kind of, as a provider of the data, this it comes from, so who owns it and how I can make sure that it's not used in a way that I wouldn't want it to be used.
Right.
Like in my case, when I had cancer, they said, okay, we'll do the samples and do you give a consent to use it for research? I said, yes, of course.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a play in a movie years ago called "Whose Life Is It Anyway?" And I just kind of edit that and say, "Whose data is it anyway?"
Yeah.
On that note, Tatiana, it was wonderful having you. As we navigate the tapestry of life, remember that every chapter offers new lessons, opportunities, and connections. Embrace the journey, cherish the moments, and continue to learn, grow, and inspire. Thanks for listening. Until next time, we look forward to speaking with you again and sharing more insights. Tatiana, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Happy April Fool's Day.